we wanted very much to see Aliyah coming from countries like, as they say, affluent societies. How affluent is affluent, I don't know. This is for the bank to tell me. But we wanted very much, not only because of that, because of culture, because of numbers, to see the United States opening its gates and for immigration to come here. You do see now quite a lot. But you as parents, first of all, I would like to hear also what are your feelings, if there are any problems, what are the feelings of the youngsters. And my wife and I welcome you in this house and welcome you in Israel. This is one of the nicest missions that we've had in this house. So thank you very much. And if any of you would like to ask me any questions, yes. Just tell me where you're from. What's your name? I must say, no.
I have the privilege to be in Washington, and President Weizmann, the former reporter, presented President Truman at the Torah many years ago, 40-some years ago. And I was privileged to be the night before Israel was declared independent in 1948 on a Thursday night in Rabbi Herzog, the other Herzog in Baltimore, right out of Israel. And I feel it's a great privilege for me to be here. Today I feel like the same Sheheyanu that I am meeting here in the White House of Eretz Israel. So what I want to ask you, and I'm privileged to serve on the Holocaust Museum in Washington, did you visit Washington, the Holocaust Museum here? If not, I am privileged to extend to you in your life an invitation to come to Washington to visit the Holocaust Museum.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. First of all, we haven't been to the States for 4 years, or more than 4 years. And last time we weren't even in Washington, we were in the States. So therefore, the answer, I haven't seen it. I promise you that next time we're in Washington, I don't know when it's going to happen, we shall visit the museum. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, Dr. Harris from St. Louis, international president of the organization. Of course, we are deeply, deeply touched by your giving us your time to speak to us. Our children, our organization represents a cross-section of every religious thought, every political thought. The major thing is, as you know, that our children are here. Mainly that our grandchildren are here. And that I know that...
Do they speak English? Yes.
The warmth of our organization, we consider ourselves a family, even though, and we, in a way, ask to you to help give us direction. We are now, our convention here entitled Old Friends, New Beginnings. And as we enter a new beginning here, we have planned to assist as much as possible to receive guidance, and we're looking forward each other to support, and so on, and to you to help us in how we can better serve these particular things.
Well, it's a great question. We're doing, I say we because we work quite closely together. We are doing our best to help in all aspects, in all fields of life. The question is, who were you in touch with until now? What organization, what authority? The what? Aha. Well, if you can tell these gentlemen, whom I don't know, perhaps I know them personally, I don't know, because I know quite a lot of Olim from South Africa, that if there are any problems, or if they want to be in touch with me, they're welcome. And then when there are problems popping up, because generally speaking, the answer, I'd love to help you, but this is overgeneralization of the situation. On specific problems, for instance, if there's some family who is in specific problem, and we can assist, we can do that. So ask this organization and the leaders of this organization, be so kind and get in touch with me. Okay? Yes, sir.
President Sidney Goldstein, Philadelphia. In this time of recriminations in Israel, I wonder if you would use your good office to try to bring all Israelis together rather than the nasty things that are being said mostly by the Labour Party, and they need a unifying force.
You see, don't take part in disunifying Israel. Say nasty things, don't say who says it. Okay, if I may give you an advice. But I understand it. Now, the gentleman said, if I could do something to get the country more unified, and he mentioned a certain block of people who, to his opinion, are not acting as it should be. Anyhow, that's irrelevant. I understood your question. Look, the political problems of Israel, which are primarily the future of Israel in the Arab world, has been with us ever since we set foot here. And leaders of Zionism tried in the past to find a way to the Arab world. Successfully or not successfully, they tried, without going into names and historical facts. This, in many respects, split the country from the beginning of the Zionist organization. What is the right way to act, behave, and find solutions to live with the Arab world, who from the moment we set foot here, didn't all of them like the idea of us coming here. And what we call then the riots in the 20s and the 30s were the beginning of the battle for Israel. I can remember 1929. I was 5 years old then. And I remember in Haifa how my father was away that time and couldn't come back. There was no El Al flying there in 29. And anyhow, it was from the beginning. And there was some political groups who said Palestine can be partitioned, and some said Palestine should not be partitioned. And I don't want to go again historically to that, but this is an old discussion amongst us. Now, what went on up to now is not good. Because even if you disagree, you have to do that gentlemanly like, which is not done by all of us. Don't start saying who is doing more and who is doing less. Not in this house anyhow. And therefore, we are doing our best now. And to answer your request, you wish. You see that this government that will be sworn in, or is being sworn in now, in the Knesset, and will be here for a historic photograph, is already a government that's got nothing to do with the terrible tragedy, that will attempt to find a better way to talk to various sectors that should be talked with or to more than have been talked to up to now. And therefore I hope, and I shall do my best, that with the difficult problems that are ahead of us, for instance, what will be the final settlement of the Western Bank? What will be the Golan Heights? What is peace? Because, after all, don't forget one thing. There is peace with Egypt now for 16 years. We gave back all the Sinai. We took off settlements. We got back to the international border. And we invented autonomy then. So I think it's superfluous to start saying who did what and who did not what. Generally speaking, I understand your request. I am doing my best. Okay? Yes, madam. Well, all you gave. Now you gave the most important thing. Will they succeed in taking you here? Thank you, Anna. Yes.
My name is Ireland Catherine, and I'm from New Jersey. I was here in 1949.
You haven't been since?
Oh, I've been here many times.
Oh. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And son and grandchildren. And I've been here for about 2 weeks now, and I was wondering what we, as parents of American Israelis, what can we do to help to heal the current open wounds that I feel of this country, especially the discrepancy between the various factions in the land. What can we do as an organization, since we represent the whole rainbow of ideologies?
Well, the first advice that comes to my little head is that when you go back, tell your friends the good things of Israel, without whitewashing everything. I know that there are certain things that I don't like, we don't like, but go and tell the story that this good lady just said a minute ago, and tell your friends in the United States what you found here, because I sometimes don't see a certain place in Israel for 2 or 3 years, and I go on a visit and I'm amazed. And like we found Ashkelon and Ashdod, and we travel a lot in the country, and the country is blooming. It's blooming for various reasons. It's the main reason because there's an Aliyah. We are now the second largest community in the world, Jewish community. We're 4.5 million. What is the states? I can never get the correct answer, whether it's 5 or 6, or whatever it is. But it's certainly over 5. And okay. Yeah. And the country has an economy that is much better than it was before. Again, I don't want to analyze the whole thing. One of the things is because the peace process has opened the world to us, beginning with the Egyptians, but going further on. And if unfortunately we can take the tragic example from the funeral of the late Prime Minister Rabin 3 weeks ago, almost, there were 80 representatives of countries who come here. Presidents, kings. There was the Queen of Holland, the King of Jordan, President of Egypt, and President of the United States, of course, with 2 other presidents, with President Bush and Carter. And you should have seen the gathering here. This is number one, an appreciation to the late Prime Minister, but it's also an appreciation and respect to the country. I think that if we pursue our policies of seeking a way to live in this part of the world, not isolated, but with a way to live with our neighbors. Because after all, you can't live on your sword all your lives, and I've been a soldier most of my life. When this happens, and we get a broader base to the government, I think most of what is happening now will probably diminish. But you go back and just tell the nice things about Israel. Yes, sir. Well, I consider and you consider. We'll see. Yes, sir. I'll shift to the left there.
Charles Hoffman from New York. I realize the importance of encouraging as many Jews, of course, to settle in the state of Israel, and I can appreciate the reasons for that. But I'm somewhat concerned about the ecology of the country. Since the last time I was here, there's so much development, and I wonder what's happening. Is any protection being given to the surrounding forests and trees and water supplies, which of course come from outside Israel mainly. But
It's come.
You're in danger of overdevelopment and destroying the beautiful land.
My dear sir, if I may, and then my wife wants to take over.
Good morning. First of all, I want to say that I came especially to pay tribute to you parents, because usually we have a kind of I don't know how to call it, we divide the job between us, and some functions I take on, some functions my husband takes on, and that's just because we cannot be all the time at every place. But this morning I particularly wanted to come, and I'm very gratified that I'm here, because I think as a parent it's really wonderful what you've done and what you're doing and the support you're giving to your children here. And I can imagine it's not always so easy when something happens and you're so far away and you worry like every parent should. But I'm privileged to be able to answer this gentleman. Last week, by the way, I go a lot over Israel because I think it's the only way that you can really get to know things. From reading the newspaper or listening to the radio is not enough. And I'm not criticizing the media, but it's not enough information and it's not first-hand information. Only last week, last Wednesday, I went with a group of volunteers to visit Ashdod. And I suggest that every time, I don't know how often you come here, try and organize yourself on a special tour with a special, not just to see the scenery or the archaeology, but to look what is the future. And the future in this country is due to hard-working people who do their job daily, are not exposed maybe on television so much. In Ashdod, there are 8, I think, municipalities organized together for the sole problem of ecology. And Ashdod, as you know, have the biggest port now in Israel, has one of the largest power stations, distilleries, all the things that are real enemies of the ecology situation. And therefore, they've been at it for 10 years. It's not new. And it's very interesting to see what people with a vision, with people with skill can do to correct and to protect, like you say, this country. And it's now spreading all over Israel because it's a big task. So it's not every municipality. They usually get together geographically, about 6 or 8 of them. And they have a special committee to solve it. In Ashdod is a beautiful place where they are rehabilitating and reliving an old river, for instance, that it used to fall into the sea. I don't want to describe to you with what rubbish. And now it's going to be a beautiful surrounding, beautiful grass, trees, places where you can have a meal or coffee houses and that sort of thing. And it's worthwhile seeing, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. It's difficult to add on more to what Ruben said. The ecology will not prevent us getting more aliyah. Okay? Yes, sir. What? Yes, sorry. Since he's on his feet already, I'll get a left inclination. Yes, sir. Sorry.
My name is Jim Sherman. I'm from Washington, D.C. And I have both of my sons live here. One is Tati and one is Masorti, and both of them were composed. We heard Yossi Balin tell us a story which disturbed me quite a bit.
about how his friend who wears a kippah now takes it off when he goes to Tel Aviv because he's frightened of things. I was, as president and someone who's respected by all sides, is there something you can do to, within the Jewish community itself, to promote more tolerance between Jews, regardless of what their political views might be?
Right. Well, first of all, I was on television last Wednesday. And I don't know whether you saw it or whether it was translated to you what I said. I said that 30% of Israel are observing Jews, whether black kippot or this kippot, etc. And I gave a few figures about Bar Ilan University, which is also a target now. And I mentioned 20,000 students, etc., etc. And I said, never point a finger at any society when something is amiss. Now, what happened here was a terrible and a tragic thing. You must understand it. I'm not justifying anything. And it was a shock to everybody all over the world. First of all, because it's our own people who are behind it. And can you imagine if an Arab would have done it? Can you imagine what would have happened? And the trouble is that this twisted man got his backing from a very queer learning. Perhaps he taught it himself, perhaps. And this is not an easy problem. It's not an easy problem. Sorry. I am doing my best that this mood will diminish, will I hope disappear. If you've noticed already now this week, the third week, it's already a bit quiet. I don't think people take kippot. My Director General of this office wears a kippah. He's a former Air Force colonel. His son is a captain in the Air Force with a kippah. He takes the kippah off when he puts his crash helmet on to go flying. And I wouldn't say that there's no problem. The problem is a lot amongst the religious, amongst the observing Jews. And I think they're taking matters in hand. I think that Mr. Peres did a very clever thing by getting Rabbi Amital to join the government. Rabbi Amital is a man I know very well, and bli hatzalachat az yeh beseder. Toda Chana. This is Chana. And it's a very wise move. The man is the head of yeshiva in Gush Etzion, and he's not a fanatic. He's not an extremist. And I hope that he will, I had a talk with him this morning on the phone, and I hope that he will, I'm sure that he'll add on to the problem. It's not a one man's job. I definitely will do my best is underestimating, I think, what I can do. But it's the Prime Minister, it's ministers, it's leaders, it's rabbis, even in the army we have to, because in the last 2 years, the question of Judea and Samaria has become a crux of the problem. And I don't want to go further into that. I think that the Prime Minister, what he's doing now, informing this government, I think that's the correct way to move about it. Thank you. Yes, to the left. Yes, my dear. Just a minute. The lady first. Ladies first.
You had asked when you started your remarks how we as parents feel and how our children feel. I can just tell you that we, my husband and I, as parents, feel extremely proud of our son here in Nevadah. And when he came back to the States about 2 years ago for a Simcha, he said, "Ma, I could never live back here again." He said, unless I couldn't afford to support my family back in Israel. That's the only thing that would ever bring me back. And the first time that I came here after he made
Thank you very much. Just a minute over there. Yes. Now, if it's appropriate for the Prime Minister to ask advice, it's definitely inappropriate for me to give an advice. And he would not ask if he didn't know he'll get an answer. Okay? Yes, sir.
So, Davidson with Washington chapter, is there anything that you, in your position, can do, or maybe your husband, can persuade the appropriate authorities
Yes.
to start an intensive program of educating the Israeli public to stop killing themselves in automobiles? It's to the point where you don't know if there's stuff across the street. And people going through this in their lives can take a chance if they're going to survive.
Right. First of all, when you cross the street, be careful. You know that Churchill was badly wounded in New York back in the 30s when he crossed the street, and he looked the wrong way because he was used to cars driving on the left-hand side. And he was badly hospitalized in New York for quite some time. So better look both ways, left, right, and upstairs and downstairs, wherever you can. Look, this is the problem that we're dealing with. The country is in its economic boom. One of the things that happened is numbers of cars, numbers of vehicles on the road. We have about 100,000 vehicles a year sold in this country, and of all kinds, from big trucks to motorcycles. And the road system hasn't caught up with it. This is not an excuse. I think that the Israeli driver has to be taught better how to drive. You'll be surprised. I think they drive better now than what they used to a few years ago. Only a few years ago there were less cars and less people to run over. And I'm not joking. I think that there's an improvement in driving. Unless you have some crazy one who goes out of the way, and we had a case like this a few weeks ago, a big truck, and about 8-9 people were killed in a big smash near Ramallah in the Western Bank. And it's Arabs and Jews. You can't classify who drives crazier. But there is a lot of control of it. The fines and the police are clamping down on it. You get your driving license revoked if you overspeed or if you cross red lights, etc. It is surprising, but I think people drive better. Only there are more of them and more people in the country, and the roads are not catching up. They have caught up. I don't know when were you last time in Israel? Have you noticed improvements? And turnpikes?
Sir, if I may point out, my wife's remark to my son was, we are no longer afraid of what might happen to you from the Arabs. We're afraid of what might happen.
Okay, now look, you can't say that within a year the road system hasn't improved if you know. That's what I mean. It helps a lot. You know how many bangs and crashes on crossroads that were terrible? You have on the main Haifa Tel Aviv road, you can drive practically, I live in Caesarea, I can drive practically to Tel Aviv without red lights. And it's not completed. And on the way to Jerusalem too. So we have to invest a lot in the road system. We have to watch the driving schools to teach properly, because I have an opinion that sometimes the driving schools don't teach properly. But we are looking into the thing, and be careful. Yes, madam.
We are a non-fundraising
That's good.
where our funds go. As a matter of fact, there's a joke at home. If your kid lives in Israel, you become a kicker and a slepper. The sick and the sick and the slep and the slep. What I would like to know is that when you have important dignitaries visiting...
It's what again?
Important dignitaries.
Yes.
going on, to have a representative there so we could learn from our own people instead of learning from the newspapers.
Look, my dear lady, I was once in the business of going to the States and talking to American jury. I gave it up about 6, 7, 8 years ago, because I think the only way you can learn is come here. I don't think there's much that can be told by someone who comes there in half an hour in Baltimore, or in Cleveland, or in Miami, and telling you about certain things, and needless to say, has to say only the good things. Nobody will tell you the roads in Israel are so terrible. You have to come here and experience it. We do send people. I'm glad that we ask for less funds now. I don't know what is your experience with it, but I think that we go to the States now less to ask for funds than we did before. If I'm wrong, then perhaps I don't read the situation. And all I can say that to send people and tell you that you can come here and live in a villa in Kfar Shmayahu, or go to a kibbutz, or do that, this is, I think these days are over. In 10 hours you can be in Israel, it's probably expensive, and come and see it here. And if you have relatives here, especially offspring, then come and learn the country. I don't see any messengers of the greatest Israel to go to the United States and tell you all about the beauty of Israel, when we have also things like this gentleman over there said, who are not so nice. We are just becoming a normal country. You have now problems in the United States. The President of the United States hasn't got a house behind him. And he's problem with the budget. And you've got problems in America now, because the budget is on the rocks now, because of the system. Good luck to you, this is the American system. And you're facing elections next year. You can do that only if you go and see it on the spot. I will do my best that if there are messengers going over to the United States, not only to ask for money, but tell you all about the country. But I'm sure when they ask for money, they tell you about the country. Yes, sir. Madam, sorry. You would like to come here and use this? Yes? What it means to us, the reaction of the youth? Well, it's not only to us, I think to all Israelis. It was a surprise in a way. Not only the crying, the behavior, the discipline. Because there were 250,000 people in the square in Tel Aviv. And everything was done correctly, relatively quietly, no pushing. And this is also a great improvement, unfortunately, when it comes to in a grief situation. But I said on television, and I say this again here, unfortunately, a tragedy pointed out to some Israelis that we have a great youth. Some of us know it without tragedies. Some of us know it when we experience the youngsters, 18, 19-year-old, in Lebanon, in the infantry, in the tank corps, in the Air Force, in the Navy, because the Israeli Defense Force is still the molding factor, the greatest molding factor of Israel. Two things mold Israel: the language and the army. And after that, they go out into the wilderness after the army, and everyone on his own. But the 18-year-older, and I see we have a grandson, he's 17 now. He's already planning what he will be, he wants to go to this, and most of them wants to go to crack units. To crack units. Whether to be, all of them want to be tough fighters. And therefore what happened here, I cannot analyze it. I think the shock was great, and it was great to all of us, and that the thing that has happened, and as I've said before, it happened and an Israeli did it, and it probably gave these youngsters something that they wanted, something they could fill their hearts with. I need a psychiatrist a psychologist to explain it. But to some of us, it was a surprise. That the youth is good, we knew before. You want to add something? Yes.
Dayton, Ohio. I just mentioned, to quote you, quote unquote, that Israel is becoming a normal country.
Mm-hmm.
I ask you, with all due respect, can we expect Israel to be a little bit better than a normal country?
Look, first of all, it's a Jewish normal country. Okay? It's a Jewish normal country with the things that we experience, like Aliyah. Aliyah is not a normal thing. You don't have much Aliyah in America, except a few cross borders. So when I say it, perhaps it's not the correct saying, but we have industry, we have employment, we have an inflation of 8%. We live better than what we lived. There's still a gap between those who have and those who have less. Still a gap, too big a gap. We are accepted and respected by the world. So we are becoming more normal. You can't say no. But I don't want to compare myself to other normal countries. And I don't want to start mentioning what other normal countries. I think that when I said normal, we're becoming different to what we were for the last 30 years. When we had to fight for our lives all the time. You know, in Israel, when someone meets you and says, I saw you in the war, you have to ask which one. So, don't worry, it's still an unusual country. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may, my wife and I thank you very much, all the best, and Litot. Bye. Use this.
Mr. President, we have a presentation we would like to make to you.
Oh.
It is being presented by the founder of our organization, Sylvia Weissman.
What's your name?
Sylvia Weissman. I appreciate the opportunity to do the presenting to Mr. and Mrs. Weitzman. You know, many people call me Weitzman because they think I'm related to you. But I'm not.
My dear girl, since I became president, I have so many relatives.
I'm not related. However, I want to say, you asked in the beginning, what are the organizations that we have contact with?
Yes.
This is our third convention in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
3 out of 15 is 1/5. 20% is not bad to come here because we have many places to meet in the United States as well. This is the first time we have been received by the establishment of Israel. And I want to say, in the United States, the establishment did not want to know us in the beginning. We did not ask for money, and we didn't raise money. We gave money. But more than that, we gave our children, we gave them the permission to come here. I have 2 daughters living in Israel. One is on Moshav near Yisrael, near Ashkelon, and another one lives in Baka, Yerushalayim. So, in appreciation, we are presenting to you this small token of our affection and our appreciation. And we thank you very much. Add 120 years. I can never say numbers in Hebrew.
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much. And the same to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
הקואורדינציות שאנחנו עדים להן ורואים, כדי להכניס לממשלה, לעשות את זה, וכך על ידי מרכיבים את הממשלה. לכן היה צורך להקים על מישהו את הרכבת הממשלה. זה לא תמיד היה אחת מפלגה שנפצה מאוד, בגלל ב-1990 התחילו על כמו דרך להכניס לממשלה ולא